Alright guys, so this is probably the most surprising or shocking thing that I've seen in a while on a brookie stream, just because this stream for sure has brook trout in it. I mean, they have shocking data catching brook trout out of this stretch of water particularly, but when I say that this feels like bath water, I am not kidding you. And that is exclusively because several miles of the stream gets baked by just farm fields and places where the sun can just beat down this stream and raises the water temperatures incredibly.
Brook trout are native to the eastern and the upper Midwest region of the U.S. and are the state fish for 9 U.S. states, the most of any other fish species. So not only are they widespread, but they are also loved by the anglers and the people who call these areas home. But unfortunately for some areas within the brook trout's native range, their populations are declining or just struggling to hold on. Changes of land use over time have caused some once incredible streams to suffer, which hurts not only the specific streams that are suffering, but also the entire river system as a whole. Luckily, we have some very dedicated people who are doing their best to make sure the struggling streams don't struggle anymore.
Yum!
In this video, I've teamed up with Trout Unlimited to help show off some of the conservation efforts going on in some areas that are struggling, and of course show off a few native brookies along the way. The goal is to start at the headwaters of a brookie stream. In the case of this video, we're going to show off a few springs, and then work down the stream and show off what effect different land uses have on the brook trout and how Trout Unlimited is using funding from the Farm Bill to help protect the streams.
So this is a fair example of a spring out here in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. It's emanating out of limestone, so it's a steady source of clean water. The limestone actually buffers out the water chemistry, puts it at a neutral pH. It's coming out of the ground between 51 degrees and 53 degrees. And so what we're trying to do is protect the integrity of this water as it moves its way downstream through these agricultural systems.
These springs are the lifeblood of trout streams regardless of the setting the creeks find themselves in. In agricultural systems, they can literally be the difference between life and death for these trout. And protecting that cold, clean water and allowing it to make it as far down the stream as possible without being impacted is imperative. Of course, you know I had to make a cast near this spring head just to see if any fish were home.
Oh yeah!
Haha! Woo!
And he's totally redeemed.
Dude, this fish has actually got color to it. Wow. Chill, buddy. Chill, buddy. Look at that fish. Out of a culvert. That's a pretty fish, too.
Of course there was a fish there. I mean, how could there not be? But I can't overstate the importance of these springs. They not only support trout local to whatever particular creek the spring runs into, but also provide spawning habitat for any fish willing to make the journey to the springs. And brook trout will travel miles and miles to reach good spawning gravel and cold, clean water. So it's tough to even quantify the impact that stream degradation has on some of these river systems. The video you're watching right now was shot from a spring not too far from where you just saw me catch that fish. That many brook trout reproducing can not only repopulate a creek, but can repopulate an entire river system if good habitat is connected. As we moved down the creek that I caught the fish out of, we decided to electrofish a section of water that would have been nearly impossible to properly fish. This section was about a half mile below the spring, and the water temperature had raised from 53 to 58 degrees.
The backpack electrofisher uses a really light AC current on these fish that temporarily stuns them. If you were to equate it to what it would feel like for a human, it's almost like when you sleep on your hand and you wake up and your hand's asleep, just a kind of a light tingle. So it temporarily stuns the fish and allows us time to net them, get them into a bucket, and then we collect them. And then collect information on them, like how long they are, how fat they are, or how much they weigh. So it gives us the opportunity to assess the health of the stream using the brook trout as our indicator.
Oh, he's gone.
Of course, brook trout aren't the only fish that live in these streams.
That's a cool looking fish, though.
Yeah, that's a fan-tailed darter. Extremely prevalent in these headwater systems, as well as even some of the larger rivers. We have a sculpin, which could either be a mottled sculpin or a Potomac sculpin. And then we have a black-nosed dace, which is probably your most common pelagic fish. You'll find these guys in a roadside ditch, and pelagic just means it swims throughout the water column.
And then here's our best friend. Chill out, buddy. Little young of the year native brookie. Thanks, buddy.
The next gen.
The next generation.
There were a good amount of fish in this section of water, but nothing too insane. But the water temperatures were good, and some of the work Trout Unlimited had done was holding up well. As we moved down the creek, however, it got more bare, with the sun warming up the water dramatically. We stopped at one location that was a little under 2 miles from the spring, and the water was noticeably warmer and sitting up into the low to mid-60s. This location had a few perfect examples of why keeping cattle off of the stream bank is so important for stabilizing stream channels.
So this is what we're trying to avoid. You can see where the cattle have eaten the grass down to just within a couple of inches here on the bank. So we're really no real strong vegetation to hold these banks together. The farmers are losing their topsoil, sloughing off with every single rain event that we have. And this is really good prime soil too. So not only does it grow grass, it grows trees really well. So if we're able to get in, pop some trees in, take some of that livestock pressure off, it rebounds almost immediately.
These are the types of areas that Trout Unlimited uses funding from the Farm Bill to help resolve. As we moved down the stream, we decided to hop in at one section where Trout Unlimited had already done the work to show off what the finished product looked like. As we were walking down to the stream, Dustin mentioned how they had shocked fish out of this section many times prior. But as we reached down and touched the water, our jaws dropped. We went and took a water temperature and found out that the water was sitting at 76 degrees at around noon, which meant it would likely get even warmer as the day progressed. This section was 5 miles below the spring head, and the temperature had gone from 52 to 76 degrees, becoming lethal for any brook trout who had accidentally got stuck in this section of water.
Alright guys, so this is probably the most surprising or shocking thing that I've seen in a while on a brookie stream, just because this stream for sure has brook trout in it. I mean, they have shocking data catching brook trout out of this stretch of water particularly, and I mean, up here, like up near the springs, up a couple miles up the stream, there's trout. But when I say that this feels like bath water, I am not kidding you. And that is exclusively because several miles of the stream gets baked by just farm fields and places where the sun can just beat down on this stream and raises the water temperatures incredibly. I know I'll never be able to convey in video that this water temperature has got to be upper 70s, but there's brook trout in this system. You know, the water temperature should never be this warm. So anyways, I just had to get on here and say that because this is like mind-blowing to me, like at a level that I haven't been mind-blown in a long time. And we're trying to connect, or people are trying to connect this water so that these fish can move around and do their thing. So anyways.
But let's not let this take away from the incredible work TU had done in this section of water. Even though there are no fish in this during the time of year that we were there, this is still a section of water that is healing and can become trout habitat one day. Here's Dustin talking about some of the in-stream work.
So prior to our project, this was basically just a barren field with a large concave eroding stream bank that with every large flow that would come through, it would take 2-3 feet in just a regular high water event in the spring or in the summertime. And so we reshaped the bank, we brought it back to a 2-to-1 slope. We added some natural root wads with logs on them. These are actually cedar. And then we came in behind them and planted willows. And you're starting to see some large black willows that are poking up through here. So we've tightened up the stream channel. We've created a great undercut bank for fish to live under. Took all the scour off the edge of the banks and allowed them to revegetate and left the water a little cleaner and colder with better holding habitat for the fish.
I was also fortunate, a few days later, to go out with Ryan Cooper, the project manager for the Potomac headwaters of West Virginia, to look at a project that was actively being completed and to talk about some of the work that goes into it. Because trust me, it's not easy, and there are a lot of people working really hard to make sure these projects get finished.
My name's Ryan Cooper. I'm the project manager for the Potomac headwaters of West Virginia with Trout Unlimited. And here we're standing at a headwater spring system to Patterson Creek. And this is part of an ongoing effort to reduce nutrient sediment reductions towards the bay, Chesapeake Bay drainage. So this is part of the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. And So this is also funded through Farm Bill funding through the FSA, through that program. And then Trout Unlimited is giving additional funding through NIFWIF dollars to supplement this work, so the landowner has very little out-of-pocket costs. That allows us to make these programs more of an incentive for landowners, so they're more willing to participate. And also, you know, it incentivizes water quality. So as you can see here behind us, we have cattle in this spring-fed system, and right now it's really dry, so this is certainly a spring-fed system. It still has water. It's a really good source of groundwater that we want to continue pushing towards the main stem and further down the bay. We're fencing out livestock with a 35-foot buffer on each side, and then right here's a stream crossing that we're going to use as an existing stream crossing, but we're going to hard armor the approaches and fence out everything but a narrow pathway with armored rock, so it allows you know, the operator to still access their land and keep everything operational, but it reinforces that area to reduce sediment impacts, so they don't have complete access to the whole stream. So up here we have the upper property boundary of this project, and it shows kind of a stark difference between a fully intact riparian zone and what we're working to accomplish here. So as you can see, this area is fully grazed and unrestricted from livestock. So you get obviously all this sediment and nutrient buildup, but also you can see once this is fenced out with 35 feet on each side and the livestock are excluded, we're going to have something like this that provides more bank stabilization, reduces sediment and nutrient inputs, and provides shade, which reduces water temperatures as well, keeps that cold, clean water flowing further down the system.
If you look at the contrast between the sections of stream Trout Unlimited hasn't done work on and the areas they have, you can see why fish don't and won't inhabit these relatively desolate stretches of water. And this is exactly what Trout Unlimited aims to fix when it comes to funding from the Farm Bill, especially in the state of West Virginia. The goal is to connect these waterways by returning the creek banks back to their original condition, or as close as we can get to that, which should, in theory, push cold water from the springs down throughout the stream. This creates more and better habitat for the fish that call them home. Building fences to keep cattle out of the creeks allows nature to take back over, while Trout Unlimited creates alternative clean water sources for the cattle to drink out of, so nobody loses and everybody wins.
So if you're going to completely exclude livestock from the stream, you have to provide some type of off-stream watering source. And so we put in several dozen of these every couple of years to give them some good steady water to drink. Which, what's amazing is if they're not in the stream drinking and in the mud and, you know, where they're defecating as well, they're going to gain better weight because they're drinking steady, clean water. They also don't have to work for that water quite as hard as what they normally would. So it's really kind of a win-win for everybody.
The incredible thing about these streams is that they are resilient, and despite these streams soaring into the upper 70s during the day, the trout still find pockets of refuge. As is the case with the stream we've been talking about in this video. There's a long stretch of water that we didn't have permission to access, but we were able to get access to another section that Trout Unlimited had done some work on that was about 6.5 miles below the section that was 76 degrees. So approximately 11.5 miles below the springs if you're doing the math. And believe it or not, the water had actually dropped down to 70 degrees. Still too warm for brook trout, but not necessarily lethal. Brook trout have a way of finding spring seeps and highly oxygenated water that allows them to survive in some warmer water temperatures, especially if they get some reprieve at night. But the good news is the water temp had dropped significantly. This was due in part to several other springs dumping into the creek, but was also combined with tree cover and some good riparian habitat that had just stayed intact while other sections had not. But because of the warmer water temps, we left this section alone and went even lower, to where the stream dumps into the main river.
Surely that's a brook trout, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it is. Ha Now we've successfully caught fish at the top and the bottom of this place. Yeah, go for it, dude. All right, guys, we have gone from the top of this drainage to the bottom of this drainage here, just to prove a point. And then we get down to the bottom, still catching native brookies. So they find a way. These little fish are pretty impressive. They will find a way if you give them a chance.
The springs on the lower end of this system kept the water in the low 60s, a stark contrast to what it was less than 10 miles up the stream. There were a few brook trout hanging out, which was awesome to see and put a smile on both Dustin and I's faces. You almost start to lose hope and get a sense of sadness when you're walking up a top-tier brookie stream and realizing a large portion of it is uninhabitable. So bad, in fact, that the fish at the bottom of the stream are segmented around a handful of springs. If they decide they want to leave, they either die or have to turn back. This is something that not only hurts the brook trout population, but also puts a hard limit on the size of the fish that these creeks and rivers can produce. Ideally, if these stream banks can be protected, then there would be little to no segmented populations of brook trout, which opens up miles and miles of stream to the fish. Just to show the difference between the stream we've been talking about this entire video and one that has been relatively untouched, Dustin and I went fishing. The stream we went to isn't too far from the stream Trout Unlimited is doing the work on, as in it has the same style of springs and the same fish, but it's forested and has little to no areas where the land use has changed over time.
I'm ready whenever. He's eating to the right more than the left.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to put it over that rock.
Good. Yep. That's a good fish too.
Trying.
Heck yeah, dude, that's awesome.
Dude.
Yep. Perfect. Oh yeah, that's a nice fish, dude.
Oh, jeez.
Got him. Yep, you're good. It's a great cast. Oh. Oh yeah, nice fish.
Yes.
Yes, dude.
There we go. An all-out monster. He's squirmy.
As you can see, this stream is a stark contrast to the previous creek. Granted, part of the reason this area wasn't farmed is because the terrain was steeper and the soil was likely less fertile. But it still gives you an idea of what the other stream likely looked like back a few hundred years ago. If all the streams looked like this, we wouldn't have much to talk about in this video. But they don't. And that's why having people that care deeply about the land they live on is overly important. As is the case with Hope Yankee, a landowner at the head of the Lost River in West Virginia. Trout Unlimited was able to use funding from the Farm Bill through the FSA and the CREP program to repair the riparian habitat and help plant trees on Hope's property.
And I bought this farm, a portion of this farm, in 1981. And my main criteria for looking for farmland to raise sheep was that it had water, because water is number one. And you needed to have water that would supply a resource for animals naturally, so that the labor intense and or potential cost factor wasn't there. But I did not realize that 50 years later I would be looking at the legacy to save something phenomenal, which is this farm has the beginnings of the Lost River watershed that start at the top of the mountain behind us, Bald Knob, and come meandering through two main tributaries. One is the one that we're standing by here, that goes all the way down to 259. The other goes on the other side of this hill and meanders down, and all the water from this watershed is the beginning. There's no other resource. It's coming off the top of that mountain. And to me, that has turned out to be, I feel like I was meant to be here. protect this. And my legacy is to do everything I can to get this into a watershed preserve so that Lost River is protected.
Hope and her husband Beth were awesome, some of the most genuine people I've ever met. And I found it poetic that her name is Hope and that this video's message should be centered around the word hope. Because without people's desire and passion to ensure these waterways are protected, the fish we all know and love, along with any animals and people who depend on this water, will struggle to exist. Seeing 76-degree water temperatures on a brook trout stream is horrible, but knowing there are people working hard to make sure that this isn't the case should give everybody hope. So here's to hoping that these important headwater streams can be helped on their way to recovering what has been lost over time. Here's to hoping that the fish that live in them can last for thousands of years to come, just as they had before we were ever even here. And here's to people like Hope and her husband Beth, a perfect example of the people of Appalachia that care so deeply about the mountains that they live in. But before this video completely ends, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Trout Unlimited and specifically Dustin Wichterman and Ryan Cooper for showing me around for a handful of days. The Farm Bill is up for renewal this year and Congress needs to reauthorize it with full funding for the conservation programs. A strong conservation title in the Farm Bill improves not only trout and salmon habitat, but also improves downstream water quality, reduces flood risk, and supports rural economies. Without these folks and this type of funding, a lot of this work isn't possible. And as always, thanks for watching.